Welcome to Three the Hard Way Sports Podcast from three guys who talked sports together over lunch for over 10 years, probably eating a Fudgy the Whale.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Three the Hard Way Sports Podcast. I'm Bryan Gaudreau here, and I am with, which order should we do it today? From Parts Unknown, yes. We have Michael Pipersek. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. I was wondering, Bryan, as you started doing the intro, I was thinking, is Bryan going to just revert back to me being last again? And yes, I'm first again. If you're not first, you're last, Alex.
I'm on the call with my agent right now.
Wait a second. From Rumson, New Jersey, we have Alex Shanley. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing great, Bryan. I mean, I don't mind being second to Mike Pipersek. That's okay.
Wow.
I think it's good. Well,
okay, my wife would say that.
Yes, I know. We're going to have a discussion today about some of the most memorable and famous announcers and our favorite announcers. But before we get into that, there's two topics really quick I want to go over. First one is one of the we haven't been able to talk about this, and it has happened. The tragic death, and you've probably all heard about this in the Philadelphia area of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother. And I just think, it's just a tragic thing. One, he was arguably one of the best hockey players in all of the NHL, but he was also one of the most beloved. And he was, they called him Johnny Hockey, and I'm just shocked at what happened. And it's even hard to talk about it now. And it's been a couple of weeks. It's been devastating to the sport, and to any athlete to see something like that happen. I just can't. And the other thing too that really bothers me more than anything else, and again, you guys can talk in a second, but it's the way, the lack of remorse that the person had who hit them, and he just was like, yeah, hey, what am I going to be home for Labor Day weekend and to hang out? Like, no, dude. And he said, oh, I only had 6 beers, only 6. Yeah, that's good. And he was cutting in and out of traffic, and it's the epitome of the slime ball, one of the worst levels of human beings that we could ever live with. And it really bothers me. So what do you guys feel about it? Who wants to go first?
if you're copping to 6 beers, you had 18.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know him. I don't follow hockey that closely, but, just hearing the backstory and, 2 young guys, obviously both, I think Johnny had young kids. His brother's wife was pregnant. I think Johnny's wife was pregnant. Mm-hmm. His was his sister's wedding. I mean, just like one thing after another was just very, very tough news. And, but you saw the hockey community rallying around him, and he will be remembered for sure.
Yes, he will. The thing is, as a parent, and we're all parents, you never want the worst thing you could ever experience is to lose your children before you, because you want your kids to outlive you, right? That's the whole deal. And so now the parents lost 2 of them. I mean, it's just devastating. And the sister lost her brother, both of her brothers, not one, 2, or both her brothers. It's just crazy.
I think there's another sister too.
Yeah, there is. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think there is. Yeah.
It's just terrible, right? Because we've evolved so far. You never have to get into a car and drive when you're drunk. Whether you've got a friend, Uber, man, like just Uber. Leave your car. Like, I don't understand. And you see this with celebrities, right? Like Justin Timberlake recently got arrested in the Hamptons or something for drunk driving. I'm like, why is anyone driving drunk? It's like, don't feel so great. Just leave the car, get an Uber, call a friend. I don't understand why you not only put your own life at risk, but he destroyed all of these families.
The fact that he was stupid enough to get in the passenger, like get in the seat of a car that drunk and drive, and then he was cutting in and outside people. And I
Swerving.
guess obviously he was so drunk he didn't know what he was doing, but I mean, no excuse at all. I mean, it's horrible, and the fact that he didn't show remorse is just sickening to me.
Yeah, it was like, well, it was early in the evening too, right? Sometimes you think about drunk driving incidents and you're thinking, well, someone closed down a bar, it's midnight. This happened at 8 o'clock at night. So they were just bicycling, down the road. And like you said, Brian, the guy's weaving in and out of lanes and he weaves basically into the shoulder to get around a car in front of him that's not going fast enough for him. And kills these two. And the heartbreaking one for me was when I read Johnny's wife post her Instagram post after he passed, which was like heartbreaking, talking about how perfect of a husband he was and father and all that stuff. And then, like you said, we're all parents, and you when you read things like that, your thoughts immediately go to what are the parents dealing with, because you for a moment think, oh my God, how would I react in a moment like that? And it's just heartbreaking, the whole situation. And they're
Yeah,
they're
they'll never get
Jersey
over
guys as
this.
well.
Yeah, they are, and they'll never get over this. They'll never
Yeah.
get over this. I mean, I mean that obviously the sister had to cancel the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to get when are they going to get remarried? If they do have it, every time they have that, even bring up the wedding, it's going to bring back the memories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, I don't even know where you start. I mean, I don't, my heart goes out to them. It really does, because I just don't know where you would start. Something that devastating that happens to any of us. I don't know where, we've all had friends that have had, you know, crazy things happen to them, and think, it happens all the time. But two at the same time, that's hard. That's
Yeah.
really hard.
Awful.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So again, our hearts at Three of the Hardway Sports podcast do, we go out to the family and all those involved, and all the fans of the NHL, because it's losing an icon, losing one of the good guys. It's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. So I'm upset. I've been upset for a while. I know my daughter Mackenzie, who's a big hockey fan, it bothered her a lot too. And even though she's a Ranger fan, you kind of he was one of those guys that no matter what team you liked, you kind of liked him. One of those players like that, and that doesn't happen that much, especially in hockey where there's such rivalry. Everybody hates each other, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a sad thing. Sad thing. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about, and this is another one. Now, yeah, I also wait one other tidbit I forgot. I did have a friend who is a trooper, and he came to the scene afterwards, and he just said it was horrible, and it was just horrible. He said it was one of the worst. Like in his history, he's been doing it for a long time, and it basically was one of the worst he's seen, because they got hit from behind.
Yeah.
Right, that is just crazy. So, okay, forget that. Now let's move on. Another thing that I want to talk about, and it's a little bit associated with that, but this is another one that really bothers me, and I want to hear your side of it, because before I go, I'm going to hear both of your sides of it. What do you think about the Tyreek Hill situation that happened recently?
Hmm.
What do you think of? I have a very strong opinion, but I will, we'll talk. But let's go for it, Mike. What do you think about Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that one, because I brought it up to my wife and son earlier today, and I haven't seen the video. I just kind of read the articles about it, and when I read it, he was talking of what I read. The account that I read said that Tyreek Hill was trying to speed the cops along, telling them to hurry up, upset with them for tapping on his window and kept closing his window, and telling the police, I guess he didn't want a scene, didn't want people to see him for whatever reason. I don't know if he just was embarrassed that he had gotten pulled over and didn't want to be seen by fans in that position, or whatever the case may be. I just think in those situations, he was driving over 100 in a 55 zone or whatever it was. Roll down the window, do whatever the cops say in that situation, no matter who you are, how famous you are, or how infamous you are, or whether you're just a normal Joe. Just open the window, do whatever the police say. I will say that from the account I've read, they were like, I guess sometimes police officers can be in this situation, and I'm not never been in that situation as a police officer, obviously, where you're always at risk of losing your life. You have no idea what's going to happen. So I can see them being like aggressive with, a suspect or someone they pull over in that case. I just, when I read the account, I was thinking, why didn't Tyreek Hill just like roll down the window and say, okay, you got me. Here's my license and registration. Let's move this along. I play for the Dolphins. I'm running late. I got to get there. And I think that would have resolved it very quickly. But then, of course, it escalated, which is the worst thing. The whole thing is just bad all around. It's terrible for Tyreek Hill, I think, but I think it's also terrible for the police as well. And I think at least one of the police officers has been placed on a leave. Um, I just I don't know. Like I guess my first thought when I read it was, why didn't Tyreek Hill just roll down the window? And they said roll down the window and just get over with it quickly, and whatever embarrassment from someone snapping your picture or taking a video of you being pulled over, like to me that embarrassment is very temporary. It's like, yeah, I got pulled over for speeding, whatever, let's move on and play the game. And it just got ugly, and now they're talking about, I guess he has made some comments, see you in court or something to the police officer. So I think it's going to drag on a bit. I could see a lawsuit coming from Tyreek Hill, and with body cam footage and anyone that took a video, there's a lot of footage out there, and it's never a good look, I think, for the police when something like this happens. Particularly with like a member of the Black community, because there have always been conflicts between the Black community and police as well. It's just messy all around. I just hate that it even happened and it escalated to that point.
It's good, very good stuff.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Alex.
yeah, I would agree. I think I read he was going 60 and a 40.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was.
No, 103. That's
the citation says 60.
Yeah, I know they was being nice.
That's like the nice ticket, right?
Maybe.
It's when they give you the your speed and they give you the no seatbelt ticket.
Yeah. So his fines are $300 for the two tickets that he's going to get, and my position is nobody was right. Like I agree, Mike. He should have just proceeded and put the window down, and that would have ended it. But I think the police officer was just seemed like he was out to prove a point, and not only did it to Tyreek Hill, but also went after Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
And I watched the two, the videos of it, and they were both wrong, is what it comes down to. Like, it doesn't have to be one guy's right and one guy's wrong, or one guy did this, which made another guy do that. Thank God nobody got hurt or anything.
Yeah.
But they're both wrong. And I think Tyreek came out and said, yeah, maybe I could have done this better and that better. And, he's going to pay his $300 fine, and, the police officer may lose his job, but clearly they were both in the wrong. And it just, I don't know, I liked what Calais Campbell tried to do and just calm everything down, which one of the other officers was doing that. He's like, yeah, he was totally being, hey, yeah, this is, just move your car. And the guy that was a hothead came over. So I just think it was two wrongs, and neither of them made a right. And, one guy's going to pay $300 and the other guy may lose his job over it. But that's what I have to say about it.
Pulling him out of a car, and oh man, like wrestling.
So here's my take on it, guys, and you guys can hate me for it, but whatever. It's cause and effect. I'm sorry. Tyreek did what he had to do. Whether he was speeding, okay, he was speeding, right? He had no seatbelt on too, right? That's another thing. You could see it on the video. The policeman said, "How come you don't have a seatbelt on?" The thing is, if you know as well as I do, when you get pulled over by somebody, you have to give your license, registration. You should be respectful, regardless of what it is. There's not, you're the person controlling the interaction. So Tyreek was controlling the interaction. He started to be a jerk. He was a total jerk. And if you watch how he started, and then the police got upset, and again, that's when the police lost his temper. But cause and effect, it wouldn't have happened if Tyreek had been a professional human being and done things the right way. But he was trying to show off, and I'm sorry, he was trying to show up the cop, and he was trying to be better than the cop because he's driving in his fancy car. And I just don't, I don't like that, the way he did it. So, okay, He was a jerk. He tried to close the window on the police. He was mad at him because he was banging on the window. But of course, he closed the window on him. So what is he going to do? And they had tinted windows. What was he going to do? So he did that. And so the policeman got upset. I don't blame him. Now, yes, should he have thrown him on the ground? Maybe not. But in those situations, they can't. And he didn't know who Tyreek was. That's the other thing too. He had no idea who Tyreek Hill was. Um, but he also he's got to worry about his life. Like they have the most dangerous job in the world. When I hear all these stories about the tinted windows that you don't know who's in the car. When those windows are tinted, they have no idea how many people in the car. They don't know if they have a gun. They don't know what's in there, regardless of what color he is, or that doesn't matter. It's just there's a situation there, and Tyreek controlled that interaction. He decided to be a jerk, so he became a jerk and he started the interaction. I'm sorry, is he? He's an adult. He knows what's going on. He's already got a record. So he should know better. I'm sorry. There's no excuse. I don't care how rich he is, how much money he has. You don't buy that. So yes, he got thrown to the ground. They were kind of nice to him. They weren't that mean to him. He didn't get hurt, right? I know he was complaining about his knee where they told him to sit in the curb.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, which is ridiculous because he played an NFL game like an hour later.
I know, it's a bunch of baloney. He was playing for the cameras, guys. He was playing for the cameras. The other stuff, I know a couple of his teammates tried to get out of the car and they were trying to come over and they weren't listening to the police either. They were making it worse. Just the policeman says, "Sir, just don't get involved."
Nah, you have to watch that. That's not the case.
I've seen it.
But that's not the case.
They were walking over with their phones and doing things. I don't know.
One Calais Campbell came out. The other guy never left the car.
No, what the other guy?
The other guy was like, "I'm not getting out of the car."
No, he never got out of the car.
There was a guy in another car that got out. Yes, there was. There was another guy in another car that got out. On the right hand side. Behind him, there was a guy.
If you're saying cause and effect, Bryan, the effect it's way over the line. You know what he decided to do.
Who started it?
Yeah,
but it wouldn't have been that way if he was nice and respectful. That never would have happened.
Agreed.
Oh,
I totally agree.
Tyreek Hill made his bed. He decided to be a jerk, and guess what, dude? You're a jerk. But now what's happening is
we'll see how it plays out because I don't think it's going to play out that way.
No, it's not. And the policeman's going to pay with his job because of Tyreek Hill trying to be a tough guy. And now the fact that he goes on
the police officer was trying to be a tough guy.
His agent's being a real jerk too. His agent's being a real jerk about it. No, I feel totally the opposite. I feel that they have too tough of a job, especially in that area. You can't deal with those with anybody who's like that. You're just give your license, give your registration, get your ticket, and move on. Don't make a big fuss. Don't be a jerk. They know better than that. And especially, he makes enough money. That ticket is nothing to him. Nothing to him. But he has to be a jerk. He's doing it. He did it for a reason. I'm sorry. My feeling is he did it for a reason, but he didn't think he was going to get thrown to the ground. So,
well, I think like, when, and of course, like none of us are cops, right? That's got to be a very, we know that's a stressful job, right? You're in these situations where every moment you could die. So here's a guy with tinted windows, keeps closing the window on you. You don't know what that guy's doing in there. Maybe he's getting a gun ready to shoot you. So wrestling him down to the ground, where it could be viewed as an overreaction, can also be viewed as a protective measure by the police officer, right? If he doesn't know if this is a bad actor in the car and you have to protect yourself. So, hey, we're going to, even though we've just pulled you over for speeding, now you're being a little bit defiant. We're going to take you out of the car and put you down. Obviously, very roughly done, which I don't agree with, but it's just a messy situation. It doesn't even happen if Tyreek Hill just opens the window, says, hey, I play for the Dolphins. I know I was speeding. Let me give you my paperwork, and can we hurry this along? I would assume that in that situation, the police would have been like, yeah, let's hurry up and get you out of here. And this never would have happened. It's just another unfortunate situation for the NFL, which has all these player conduct issues and so forth. Deshaun Watson now has another woman accusing him. The NFL does not need this stuff at all.
Well, and Tyreek's such a great guy, man. He gave his kid used a cigarette lighter that caught his house on fire. He has
Oh, that was Tyreek Hill.
domestic assault conviction, child abuse, another assault, paternity lawsuits. He's got like it's just crazy. So yeah, he's such a great. She's just a great citizen. He's a scumbag. I'm sorry, guys. He's a
Oh wait,
scumbag.
newsflash, Bryan, he just got traded to the Jets.
Yeah, still a scumbag. I don't care. I don't want him. I don't want him. He's a scumbag. So yeah, whatever. I'm glad. I hate to say this, but I really feel bad that one policeman's going to suffer. Now, yes, he did go. He shouldn't have done what he had to do. He had to control himself. But Tyreek started it, and now he's trying to make himself look like a hero. He's not a hero. He's far from a hero. He's never been a hero. He's never going to be a hero. He's a loser. A loser who makes a lot of money. So
it's a bad moment for everybody here.
Yeah, it is. It is.
No winners in this situation.
Yeah, I don't like when people try to cause a problem where they could just make it easy and just move on. You made a mistake. Okay, own up to it, and then just move on. Don't cause a trouble. Why? He did not have to do that. There was no need to do that. He makes more than enough money. Pay the ticket, move on. And he had to be an ass. So
how late was he? Was he like running really late?
No, because the other players were there.
Yeah, they were behind him.
True.
Yeah, there was players
on their way there
behind
too,
him.
right?
Yeah. So he's a scumbag. You look at his if you look at his career, there's more things that he did illegally than there is like positive. So, but anyway, he makes a lot of money and he's probably set for his life unless he spends it all on more cars. But we'll see what
Bryan
happens.
Galloway, not a fan of Tyreek Hill.
Not a fan of Tyreek Hill.
Not
I
on his
never have
fantasy
been. No,
team.
I never have been. This is not even. This doesn't change my I didn't like him prior. Now it just makes it worse. Okay, so move on. We've spent way too much time on that. I apologize. Let's talk about. Okay, so let's start. Who wants to start? Let's talk about who are your favorite. Do you want to go by sport or you want to go by, who are in your lifetime? Who are your most memorable and favorite announcers? And
yeah, let's go by sport because we all grew up in the tri-state area. So I'm curious how many of our favorite announcers across sports are going to be for the local teams or those some of those national broadcasters that we'd all get on CBS or NBC or whichever channel we were watching and whichever sport it was.
Okay, so let's go baseball. Who wants to go first? Mike?
Yeah, I'll go first. And I'm gonna go with a national guy. Well, a national guy for me, but he was a Cardinals announcer. But and for me, a lot of it is the voice, right? The voice has to kind of like resonate for you. So one of the baseball announcers that I really liked watching was Jack Buck, not Joe Buck, who's doing Major League Baseball and does I think he does Monday Night Football with Troy Aikman now. Not a massive fan of Joe Buck, but his dad, Jack Buck, who was the Cardinals announcer for a long time, also did playoff games and World Series games for Fox, I believe. And the memorable call for me, and I always loved watching games that he did, even if I didn't care who the playoff matchup was, or the World Series matchup, just because he had a great voice. I'm sure he was on radio at one point, great voice for radio as well. But like a classic call I remember was in 1991 when the Braves and the Twins were playing in the World Series, and they'd both been in last place the prior year and played an epic World Series in 91. And in Game 6, Kirby Puckett hit a walk-off solo home run in like the 10th or 11th inning to give the Twins the win. And as the ball sailed over the fence in the Metrodome, if you remember that crazy stadium they played in.
Yes.
Jack Buck's call was, "We will see you tomorrow night." And it was just a great call. I was actually rooting for the Braves in that World Series, but the Metrodome had the Homer hankies and great atmosphere.
That was a Dan Gladden, Kirby Puckett. That was that was a great World Series because yes, it was two very likable teams, Yes,
and I loved Joe Buck. Like Joe Buck, older guy, obviously, and just a great announcer. And the cool thing about that call was that his son Joe Buck then becomes an announcer and like a very respected announcer in the game, does baseball and football. As I said, he actually was calling the World Series and called a bunch of World Series in 2011 when he was doing the Cardinals. I think it was Cardinals Rangers World Series. David Freese hit a walk-off home run in Game 6, and Joe Buck said, "We will see you tomorrow night," which was, in reference to his dad's call back in '91. So that was really cool. Like 20 years later, he made the same call that his dad did. But I loved watching games with Jack Buck. Just a great voice, perfect for baseball because there's not a lot of action happening a lot of the times when you're watching baseball. So it's really about the announcers and how they kind of make it interesting with, whatever stories they're telling or just the way the inflection of their voice when there is a big moment. And Jack Buck, for me, is just a terrific announcer.
That's an awesome one.
Yeah, so baseball for me, nationally. So I thought about it. I thought about it a different way, right? Like local, national, and but for baseball to me is I love the storytellers, the guys that told during the game great stories, both professionally and comedically. So like Vince Scully is great, just the flow of the game, solo booth, just him calling the game and just telling relevant stories throughout the game. So he was a great national guy, but I'm going to go with Phil Rizzuto and Bill White for the Yankees as a local broadcast, right? And Phil Rizzuto, more comedic stories, but, kind of came up in the heyday of the Yankees, played on the team, and, just told these crazy, outrageous stories that had nothing to do with the game at all. And Bill White was just kind of the steady Eddie, like always there, always on time with his call. And so I really like those two. Again, it's my age when I was growing up, when I was listening to them. Another guy, and I didn't really hear him call games, but this week in baseball was Mel Allen. I loved his voice. Yeah. Fantastic. And he was a great orator and storyteller as well. So for me, baseball, Jack Buck's a great one. But I would go with kind of that pairing, more anybody that told a great story and kept it within the game. I think that's kind of lost now, I listen to the Yankees a lot, and Michael Kay and Paul O'Neill and David Cohn. I mean, they're okay with it. The Mets guys,
they're awesome.
They're awesome in the game, the game. But, the history, like, I feel like when Keith Hernandez tells a story, it's just like, yeah, this is what happened. It's not like, well, in the flow of the game and the speed of the game. And it's the same with Paul O'Neill and David Cohn. I'm not bashing the Mets or anything, but I just feel like the older guys just kind of got it. They understood the pace better. So I would harken back to Vince Scully, Phil Rizzuto, Bill White, and even Mel Allen with what I heard on his voice. So,
but Gary Cohen, Ron Darley, and Keith Hernandez, like, I don't watch Mets games, but there are all these gaffes, and it's mostly Keith Hernandez that make it into these like video reels, like on TikTok or X or whatever, and they're just hysterical. Like, there was one from earlier this season that I stumbled on, and they were talking about, they're showing like the crowd, and from the back you see these two guys sitting next to each other, and one guy's wearing a Gary Carter jersey and who was number 8, and one guy's wearing a Keith Hernandez jersey, number 17. And Gary Cohen's like, oh, there's Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter, a couple of guys that both had C's on their chest. And Keith Hernandez goes, yeah, adds up to 15. And Gary Cohen's like, what adds up to 15? He's like, 8 and 17. And Gary Cohen's like, that's 25. And just the three of them just cut up. And it's hysterical. And there are so many of those kind of like goofs where, the three of them are sitting there between pitches and they just start talking about like random stuff, like Keith Hernandez's phone goes off in the booth because his ring went off and they're like, what's that about? He's like, oh, the UPS guy came, and they start talking about what it was. And he's like, oh yeah, I ordered a bed for my cat, because Keith Hernandez like really into cats. And he's like, yeah, I bought a bed for my cat. I wanted to make sure it got there. And I'm like, you couldn't turn off the notification for that? It just like the banter among the three of them is more.
And they call every game together, right? Like the Yankee booth is like, you never know who you're going to get. And it's just, different guys every week.
Yeah. So I think that, the thing was with Phil Rizzuto and Bill White, you always knew they were there, right? Like if you heard them talking, you knew that it was a Yankee game, right? You
Right.
knew, like, it was part of the, you know, that's that's the part of sports that I think is we've lost the most with technology, is the fact that they don't have that crew anymore. That one crew that lives and dies with the team and follows them around all over the time. Yeah. So I mean, are you done? I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't want.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to hear yours, Brian.
Okay, well, I'm going to say so. He already. I mean, Bill White and Phil were mine, but I'm going to tell you, there's two more that I really do like. I actually, I'm three if you include. I like Tim McCarver, but that's another whole.
Mm.
I liked him, and
Deion Sanders' favorite announcer.
yeah, and I did love Joe Garagiola too. I did love Joe
Yeah, he was
Garagiola.
great.
Yes.
Joe Gargiola was great.
So,
Yeah.
but so okay. So here's it's funny. Again, I love baseball. I would watch anything. I watch all baseball, no matter what it was. So I used to watch a lot of Met games, and
Mhm.
I think Ralph Kiner, Lindsey Nelson, Bob Murphy, those guys were amazing. They were tremendous. I think
In
they
the 80s, maybe.
Ralph Kiner sounded drunk.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
well,
like, as it went on, I'm like, how
Kiner
can
was
they
Yes,
keep
he
putting
was
this
really
guy on
it's
the
when they got
radio?
older. Yeah, when they got older.
How's he
But
getting
yeah,
home?
Yeah.
Kiner's Corner was like
Yes.
that was you couldn't wait to watch Kiner's Corner because you got to have upfront personal discussions with the players, which because ESPN didn't exist then, so you got to see these guys and do that. So I thought that
And
was
he
really
was
cool.
tanked by the time those
Yeah,
went on, right? It was after
yeah,
the
but
game.
and again, you think about it, Ralph Kiner was a darn good baseball player.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had 500 home. So
300 in like 9 or 10 years or
yeah,
something, right?
I mean, he was great. So anyway, but they were amazing. But I also liked, and again, because I would watch the games, and my dad liked them, and even from college. But um, Richie Ashburn and Charlie Callis for the Phillies
Phillies.
were
Yeah.
tremendous. Richie Ashburn was, I mean, he was there. He was their announcer for a long time, but and he was probably arguably one of their top 10 greatest players of all time. But those two had a good banter, and they were great, and they knew they had a lot of knowledge. Um, that there was, so I have to say, we were lucky enough to grow up where we had three really good announcing teams all in the same area. We could turn on games and watch them all. We'd turn on the UHF and have to fix the antenna a little bit, but watch the Philly games, and they were all amazing announcers. So I love that part of sports at that time. It's not like that now because I listen to these announcers because they have so many stats and they're throwing things on the screen, and that's taken away from the game. It's not telling that story, like Mike said, telling the story of the game, which I think is what you want to hear. And that'll probably be my, as we go through, my mantra for, as we go through sport by sport. But I think great, I can't disagree with anything that you guys said. Those were all great. Any others we missed? I mean, there probably are a lot that we
Well, I'm
missed.
surprised
yeah.
Alex didn't bring up Susan Waldman. I know he was always a big fan of hers.
That's another one. She's
John Sterling's voice and Susan together is a classical thing, but they're not good,
no,
but
Yeah.
but it reminds you of, oh, this is a Yankee game for sure.
yeah.
But
Listen,
not that they're bad, they're just
no, I don't hate
not
them,
great.
but
Yeah.
and John Sterling's a wonderful man. I've met him like 6 or 7 times in my life. Wonderful man. I just don't. I think at that point it was, as the time went on in his career, it became more of a joke with the home run stuff.
Yeah.
Where he was at one time a very good announcer with the Braves, etc. And I'm going to talk about him later, but he with the Yankees, I don't even put him in. Yeah, he's not in the top group because there's too many other ones before him that were good. But not awful, not awful at all. Good announcer, but it became more of a goofy thing about this. The what were the stupid home runs? Robbie Cano, don't you know? I mean, like, I love those things, but then it got stupid because he had to make them up for like the third string catcher hit a home run. Then he had a stupid saying for them, and the guy was so dumb. So that got out of hand.
Yeah. I would say
Okay.
good, related to the team, local, but not I didn't think a great announcer.
No.
Told good stories, but not.
You didn't like
Yeah,
that
wonder-
Yankees
again.
win thing that he would do? That drove me
Oh
crazy.
yeah. No. And he made a lot of mistakes too. He made a lot of mistakes
Yeah.
because he was more about again. Michael Kay. I love him as an announcer. I mean, as a talk show host. But I don't. He's okay too. He's another guy that kind of likes to go for the the important call and making sure you have the right home run call and stuff like that.
A little too showy, right?
Yeah, sure. But I like, again, talk show host. His talk show is amazing.
He's good.
He's very good. So, okay, let's move on. What's the next sport? Let's go. We'll go basketball. Let's go basketball. Go ahead, Mike.
Basketball. Okay. I'm not, I can guess one of the guys Brian's going to have on his list. So I'm not going to name that guy. I'm just now curious if Brian's going to have him. But I will start with, and we can go one by one if you like. I'm going to go with someone that's fairly new to doing analysis work on ESPN. I see her on Friday night games, and I think it's a big deal because it's a woman doing NBA games. But Doris Burke, who was a really good basketball player in her own right at Providence, and she was
from New Jersey.
Is she really? See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, she played for like Manasquan or
no way.
Yeah.
She was the sideline reporter for ESPN for a while, and I thought she was very good at that. And because it's viewed as an old boys network, how's a woman going to break in? But I think she gained a lot of credibility with the players and the coaches in her sideline reporting work, and she's a really keen analyst. And and then she has street cred because Drake is a big fan of hers as well. So Brian's favorite rapper. And
yeah.
So she's
by far.
Yeah, she played at Manasquan.
Oh, no way. And then Providence. Yeah. I didn't know she's from Jersey. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Another good one from Jersey. But I think she does a really good job at analyzing the games, right? Because like Bryan was saying, there are so many announcers now that seem to be trying to hit that home run by making a great call or coming up with a catchphrase. And she doesn't do that. She just focuses on the game. And I think she's like really accurate. She doesn't embellish and make it seem like certain players are better than others, but she doesn't diminish other players as well, where I feel like some announcers are like wanting to get famous by talking about how bad someone's playing. She's just like really even keel and just does a great job. And I think it's great to see that this woman who knows the game really well is able to get to that level where she's doing like the main game on a Friday night for ESPN all season. So like I enjoy watching her announce games and analyze games. She was working with JJ Redick, who I was not crazy about. He was one of those guys that I felt like was trying to show off how much he knows. She's just like really steady, really solid. And I'm like, I think this is great that you have a woman able to do NBA games and hold her own with all of these other announcers.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I mean, I think I didn't like her at the beginning and I didn't get it. And then I started researching her and then she started getting bigger games, national games, and I paid more attention. And she's really good.
Yeah.
And she's blazing a trail. Like you have to give her credit for that, like she knows the role that she's in and she's out there like you said, in an old boys network, and she's making, a good foothold for women and really, I think moving the bar, for everyone, not just women, but men. She does a very good job and I give her a lot of credit. And like I said, I didn't like her at the beginning. I thought she was too robotic, but then all of a sudden I realized like, well, she's just learning, right? Like she's just getting it. And then, and they kudos to the network, right? Like giving her more opportunities and, she moved up and now she's like the number one team, right? Calling playoff games and everything. And she's very good. And like I said, she knows the game and she can hang with anybody when it comes to talking about the game. So I think she's an excellent choice for basketball.
There's no way she can't have felt the pressure, right? Like when you said, oh, she seemed robotic, there had to be pressure there for her, right? She is 100%. A woman, like put in that position. Like, can you imagine if the tables were turned, right? And the world was different. Like everything was like run by women and, all the announcers were women and you brought like a man in and you were that man. You'd have to be nervous, right?
Right. Yeah.
You'd have to be. So I think she's like represented herself like really well. And like you said, she's raised the bar in a really tough situation where, now it may become easier for another woman to make that step, similar to how like Becky Hammon became an assistant coach with the Spurs. And that's now opened the door where now it's not so uncommon to have a woman, a female assistant in any sport. Like there are even NFL female assistants. So I think she's done a great job, like you said, blazing the trail. And I really enjoy watching her perform. Just does a great job, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. Any
So
others? Any others for basketball?
I'm going to throw one out. And it's more, I'm not an avid basketball watcher. When the Knicks are good, I watch and get involved. But I'm going to, I'm laughing. Marv Albert was was the voice, right? The voice of the NBA for so long in the late 80s and 90s, and called great games,
stand that call.
and right, and I just like that. And then he had the whole sex scandal and all the jokes that went around with that,
and his hairpiece, his bad hairpiece,
the whole bit. And then he came back from that and did more years, and then so it's more like when we talk about these guys, like you said, Bryan, when I hear Phil Rizzuto and Bill White, I know what it is. When you heard Marv Albert, to me, it was going to be a good basketball game. And he was always on the biggest games at the time. And so for me, who's more of a, casual fan of basketball, I would say Marv Albert.
So an interesting thing you said about Marv. Now, again, I love Marv, so he's on my list. Marv with Cal Ramsey was a good matchup. The combo that was basketball for me at that age. Those guys were great.
Yeah.
Any more
for basketball?
Yeah.
I think he's really the first one that jumps to me. So
okay. I have a couple.
I like Jay Billis. I mean, I know we're not
very good
college.
Yeah. No, he's
very good announcer.
I think he's very good, and
he's terrific.
He's put in a difficult situation sometimes, obviously with Duke, because Duke's always in the conversation, and he went to Duke and played there and is a big Dookie. And I think he usually handles that pretty well, and he calls Duke games. I think he does a pretty good job about that. But I always think of him too. Like when March Madness comes around, I just love, Clark Kellogg and Jay Billis talking basketball.
I love Kellogg too.
Great. Yeah. I think those are two great guys. Again, from a college basketball perspective.
No Hubie Brown, huh?
No. I actually don't mind him, but
he was really good. A long time ago, yes.
Actually, and everybody respects him.
Yeah, about
everybody.
20 years ago, Hubie was amazing.
Like a basketball savant.
Yeah. Okay, so my basketball. Okay, so Marvin Cal Ramsey was so. I love Walt Frazier.
Yes, I knew that's the guy you were going to say.
Yeah,
Walt Frazier and Walt Frazier and Breen are a great combination, but I love Walt. I love the fact that
he's the John Sterling of basketball.
But he does call people out when they stink.
Yes, agreed.
He does something stupid, which Sterling will never do that, and so he does do that. So, I have to tell you, I like Mark Jackson and Van Gundy together.
Oh yeah, I did. Too.
I did like them together a lot.
How did they let them go?
I don't understand. that they were amazing together.
Very strange, right?
And they just fed off each other. And there goes that man. I just
gotta disagree here.
Okay, you don't like them?
I think Jeff Van Gundy's really good. And sometimes he was a little too jokey, like the jokes were too much. Mark Jackson used to drive me nuts with that "Mama, there goes that man."
I love that.
I don't stand that call.
It was mostly with Curry. That's probably why I liked it.
I think he almost played like the third man role. Like Van Gundy was. It seemed like the lead analyst.
Yes.
And then so maybe it's Ian Eagle, whoever's calling the game, but I just think Jackson fit that so well because he brought a different perspective and a different language and different terms. And, I think he just did that so well. And he could very easily be the second guy, but I think Van Gundy just talked a little too much. But I just, like Bryan said, I think they played off each other so well. And whoever was calling the game, I think those two just fit in. And the commercials that they made when they were in the bus and all that.
Oh, that was just hilarious. I love that. So, okay. So here's my other one. And this is an interesting one because of the fact that you might not even know this because he was also a hockey announcer, but for the Islanders, but he was the Nets announcers for a while, especially when Bernard King was in net. John Sterling. John Sterling was a
Huh.
tremendous basketball
He
announcer.
called the Hawks.
He Hawks, but he also called the Nets.
Yeah.
He called the
Did
Nets
he? Yeah.
during the Bernard King and that. There's that one year where Bernard King and John Williamson brought the Nets to the playoffs, which they should never have been there. He used to make the calls, and we used to go to we used to go to Piscataway, and he'd be there all the time, and he was the nicest man. We go up to him and talk to him, and he would just sit there and talk to us all the time. Wonderful, wonderful man, and I loved his calls, like like Bullseye, John Williamson, and he was just so good. And it was also, the thing is, back then, listening to the radio was really important too because you didn't have as many broadcasts. There were not that many games on. You had to turn on like Channel 9 and watch games. So the Nets would play, and they were in Piscataway, and no one wanted. We would go to a lot of games. Pretty much every home game. I have to tell you, for the 2 years they were there, I might have gone to every home game, if not maybe missed one or two, because they were so close and I could go there all the time. But I have to tell you, on the radio, I listened to the games on the radio all the time, and he was the best. He was great. So I think play by play basketball, he was great. He was also a very, very good hockey announcer for the Islanders, but I'm not going to say he's not my favorite hockey announcer, but he's one of the top. But for basketball, John Sterling was darn good. And again, I always, people don't say it as much. They know about his Yankee career and the Hawks and the Braves too. He did the Braves, right?
Hmm.
He did the Islanders, Hawks. I think he may have done other teams, but those are the ones he did mostly. When he was in the Nets, he was amazing. He was like, we all loved him. We all loved to listen to him. And again, he had catchphrases, which is, bullseye when they did a 3-pointer. But he
They didn't have 3-pointers back then.
yeah, they did. They did. That was after the ABA merger. That came over in the merger. So, yeah, but he was just amazing. So it was that for me as a child, I remember John Sterling on the radio, listening to on the radio. He was just great. But also at the, there, and the fact that he would actually we just go up to him and he'd talk to us. He was like really nice, and he was just a personable man. Nothing bad about him or mean about him. So anyway, okay, so that's basketball. Let's
Where do
go
you guys
to.
Where do you guys stand on Dick Vitale?
I like him.
Yeah.
I think
like
he
him.
brings energy to the
Yes.
college game. I like him.
But not as a play-by-play guy. I liked him as a in between quarters and halftime discussion kind of guy. Did
Yeah.
you like him during the game?
I did. Again, early days, right? Fab Five, Duke.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
early days when it wasn't completely over the top. I think he called games good. I know Mike's not a fan.
You know what? When I was a kid, I did like him because of the energy. The energy was
Right.
great. It was infectious. But
And the
then
college game needed that.
as I got more into the game and I was watching, I was like, this guy's not really giving many insights. It's just still the energy and the diaper dandies and the catchphrases. And I know he's dealing with cancer and stuff now, and he's brought a lot to the game. I think he elevated the college game, through the sheer force of his personality, which is great. So the contributions are great. But in terms of like, hey, is this guy a great announcer? I'd be like, not really. One other guy I'd mentioned with basketball, kind of for the same reason, very entertaining, almost like comical.
Could I guess?
Yeah.
Al McGuire?
No, Bill Walton.
Bill Walton. Oh yeah, I loved him.
He was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. When he did the NBA games on NBC, him and Steve Snapper Jones would kind of joust at each other.
Steve Jones was good. Yeah. Steve Jones was good.
They would joust at each other because Bill Walton was known for making these ridiculous statements sometimes, right? Like Mark Eaton would score 3 points and he'd say, the best center in the NBA. And and Steve Jones would say, what are you kidding me? He's not better than this guy or that guy. He's like, no, Mark Eaton's a tower of power, played for the Utah Jazz and the Great Salt Lake. But just highly entertaining. And then in his latter years, he was doing college games where it was just, again, similar to Dick Vitale. It was just boundless enthusiasm. Someone gave him, his partner Dave Pash gave him a cupcake for his birthday with a candle in it, cracked the joke like, I'd like to see you eat that with a candle. And Walton put the whole thing in his mouth with the candle, just, wearing tie-dye shirts, talking about getting high. It was just, the
he
guy
had a great life.
Yeah,
he had a great life.
Wonderful man. Good heart. Yeah. Well, good heart. Okay. Basketball. So football. Mike.
So for football, I will start with, let me see. So football, I'm going to go back to my childhood with this team that did the NFC games on CBS each week. John Madden and Pat Summerall.
Yeah,
So
the
Yeah,
classic, the
they're
classic.
Yeah.
again, with John Madden was John Madden, right? Big personality, and like show a guy getting hit, boom, and the turkey legs on Thanksgiving. And then Pat Summerall, the straight man, and similar to what I was saying about Joe Buck, just had this great voice that just made you feel part of the game. And he did the Masters for a long time, the golf tournament, which was again perfect guy for that role as well for such a distinguished tournament. But like football games, I just remember always watching NFC games, and you'd watch playoff games and NFC championship, and they would make you feel like you were there. So if the game was played in RFK Stadium because the Redskins were hosting, it was a freezing cold day, they would talk about the atmosphere of it, and you'd feel the cold watching the game on TV. I thought they were fantastic and were a team for a really long time. I think Pat Summerall then started having some alcohol issues and got older, and the team broke up. But I just remember as a kid growing up watching that, national game of the week on CBS each Sunday, and it was those two, and it just made the game feel bigger when they were doing it.
So that they're the best. I mean, like you hear their voices and you just know you're in for a great game. And they always got the best games.
Yeah.
And like you said, Mike, they set the setting perfectly every week, and they work great together. But because you went with them, I'll go the next level. A guy that started on Monday Night Football, but then became the king of college football, Keith Jackson.
Oh,
Yeah.
great
Right,
one.
you hear his
goodness.
voice,
Oh my goodness.
and you knew it.
Yes.
And I'm going to bring up
Oh,
somebody,
Nelly. Yeah.
the current day guy who does that for me. And some people don't like him, but when I hear his voice calling a game, I think college football is Gus Johnson now.
Yes.
Like, I just think he's great, and I love his calls. And I know some people give him a hard time. I don't get it. Like he is, he defines a game by the way that he shouts words and says different things. And I really like Gus Johnson now. So I'll go with football. I'll go Keith Jackson, originally NFL, Monday Night Football, then went to college, became the king there. And then, current day Gus Johnson, I really like him a lot.
But Bryan, before you go, I just have to tell you this, Alex. When I was thinking about announcers and writing them down for football, I did write Gus Johnson down. And I had a few guys for football down. But for Gus Johnson, the notes I put, and this is from a couple of calls I remember seeing him make, and like, again, very enthusiastic. But my comment that I wrote down for him was borderline orgasmic.
That's true.
Because
he always has that one word he emphasizes, like he's
like I've seen him make a call, and if I'm watching a game with someone, I turn, I'm like, Gus Johnson's gonna have to change his pants after this game.
He's good though, and basketball too. But I really like him, and I think he's a better fit for football.
He loves it.
Yeah,
he loves his job.
Yeah,
He's doing a great job. So for football, for me now, I'll do two. I'm going to do two, and one of them is Charlie Steiner when he used to do the Jet games. He did
Great
the
voice.
TV and the radio different times. I always thought he was the best. Since then, the Jets have new ones every year. They change all the time, so it gets to be annoying. So, but besides that, so that was my favorite for the Jets. But the other one that I like, because you guys already
did he do radio, Bryan, or TV?
He did both. He did both.
Yeah. He has a fantastic voice, Charlie Steiner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He does. He would do baseball playoff games on the radio, and I would just.
He was the Yankee guy.
Yeah,
he was the Yankee guy for a couple of years.
He was. He's
done.
And then he went out west, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But he was when he was in the Jets. That was like some of my favorite years because again, it was a consistent voice. Now I turn it on. I'm like, who's that talking? I don't even know. So the other group was, and it's an interesting one because my mom was really strict on bedtime, so I could usually only go watch like the first quarter of the Monday Night Football games when I was a kid. But Howard Cosell and Danny Dunn and Gifford, they were pretty amazing. But I really didn't get to experience them as much as all I got to hear them was once in a while. and then you would hear him afterwards. Like a lot of times afterwards, you would see replays of games and get to hear them. But Howard Cosell was amazing. Now again, is he Summerall and Madden? No, but they're right below that. And I think they set the bar for everybody else, and at the time, and then then Madden and Summerall came and knocked them off. And at that point, they were kind of forgotten. But there's Dandy Don and Gifford, who I hated Gifford, but but Howard
Don
Howard
Meredith just drank the whole game, right? Like singing.
Howard Cosell was hilarious. Howard Cosell was hilarious, but he knew his sports. Like he had an annoying voice, but I think that was part of his niche. But he knew his sports, man. He really did. And of course, he had some of the biggest calls ever in the history of sports. Howard Cosell. So I love that. He was great too. You guys already talked about the ones that I like. But and local, just Steiner. That was it.
Vern Lundquist.
Not bad.
Good voice. Yeah, good.
I liked him. Yeah.
You know who's good now? I don't watch a ton of NFL games, but Greg Olson.
He's great.
He's very good.
But the players have taken over the booth.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's really good. Because he's insightful, but I'm like, they don't that big of a football
They don't
guy.
criticize people. See, the problem with the ex-players is they're really scared to criticize any of their teammates and stuff.
Well, the quarterbacks will never say anything bad about another quarterback. But think about it, right? Troy Aikman, Tony Romo, now Tom Brady. Greg Olson, Tiki Barber. It's like every booth has a former player in it. Like, what happened to the job of? No, I'm a football analyst. That's my job, right?
I know.
And I realize John Madden was a coach, obviously, but I just feel like the players, and they're just too team oriented.
Well, Gifford was a football for the Giants, right? And Danny Don was for the Cowboys. So it's not, it wasn't. But I get you. I understand. Yeah. Okay, so I don't even know if you guys have a fit because you're not as much. How about hockey?
You know who? And I can't go into great depth on this, Brian, but like in the 80s, I did used to watch a lot of hockey on ESPN, and the team that they had, Mike Emmerich and Bill Clement, I thought were very good.
Yeah, Bill Clement was amazing.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. And again, like Mike Emmerich was a great play-by-play guy, and like the voice was great. Those are probably the only two guys I really remember from hockey. I mean, I remember watching some Ranger games and seeing like John Davidson, for example. But,
actually, John Davidson was very good. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
I actually almost forgot about him. Yeah, he was terrific.
Yeah,
how about you, Alex?
I just watch those national games and see Emmerich and Clement, so they get like the
Peter
game
Puck. You like Peter Puck too? Like
who?
Remember Peter Puck?
Peter Puck.
That stupid animated Puck they used to have on all the national games. It was the stupidest thing in the world. No,
is that the yellow? Is that the yellow outline they put on the puck for a while?
No, there was a puck. There's this Puck guy with the eyes and stuff. I'm not kidding you. He was on all the national. They played him on all for a couple of years. He was on the national games, and then everybody thought it was stupid. He kind of looked like that. Remember that paper clip that used to be on? Microsoft? He looked a lot like that, but he was a Puck. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like Mike said, Mike Emmerich, Doc Emmerich, or whatever you want to call him, but he's like a savant. Like he just studies and like absorbs everything. So he's amazing. He has great calls. But I'm gonna go with current guy Don LaGreca.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's good, and ton of passion, great calls, into the game, a lot of energy. Doesn't get to call all the games. I think he fills in on the Ranger games for who's the main guy in the Ranger games? Brad, do you know?
Right now, I don't even know.
Is it Steve Albert? I'm not sure.
Is it?
But he
Don LaGreca, like Michael K's guy?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, he does hockey. Okay.
Yeah. That's his thing.
Oh, cool.
That's his thing. He covers the Ranger games and does a lot of them a year. But I don't think he's like the number one guy. But I just love him. I think he's a great personality. He's kind of just a East Coast, Jersey, New York guy, and puts all the passion in the world into the games. And so I'll throw him out there. See what you guys think.
All right.
Yeah,
I like him on Michael K's show.
Sam Rosen, Kenny Albert. Sam Rosen and Kenny Albert.
Oh, they're the main guys. Yeah.
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 Okay. So my favorite hockey one is the big whistle, Bill Chadwick. I thought but he's very similar to Ralph Kiner, where he like Chadwick was great, but then he started as he got older, he was drunk too, um, and but he was tremendous. He like when I hear his voice and on these old replays, I'm like, oh, the big whistle. He was great, and he was a referee that became an announcer, which is him and Jim Gordon. They used to do it back in the days, and then Sam Rosen. Sam Rosen's been around
That's a good one.
forever.
Yeah, he's very
He's
good.
been around for like 25 years. Sam Rosen, that voice you kind of feel when you listen to Sam Rosen Ranger game. But the big whistle was my guy growing up. But again, he same like with Kiner. Like after a while, you're like, oh man, this guy. How much did he drink before the game? I can hardly understand what he's saying. So but those guys are great because again, they painted the picture of the game, especially when you're listening to it on the radio. When we didn't, I was at college. They didn't have, when I was at college, all they had was Philly games. So I would have to go on my radio and try to listen to the really bad broadcast, and I would hear, the big whistle. So I do remember that. But that's for hockey. That's it. Any other, so the only other thing I was going to think about in essence of time, I know it's getting, this episode is getting long, but really quickly, ESPN, who were your favorite people on ESPN? So, I mean, good or bad, like there's been so many ESPN people, but who were your, pick two people on ESPN that were your favorites?
Just the personalities from like Sports Center
Yeah.
or whatever. I guess the main ones that always stood out were who was it? Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick were big there, and they really propelled ESPN into the stratosphere. I feel right, like those two.
They
guys.
were the neck. They were the first two guys were Chris Berman and Bob Lee.
Yes, yeah.
They were kind of the originals, and I always liked Bob Lee. I mean, I know he was much more of a straight guy and did more of the serious stuff, and Chris Berman was kind of like the create names for guys.
Bob was a great one because he did all of those outside the lines, which I thought were really great.
They were very good.
Yeah, and that I think probably started that whole
30 for 30
sports
stuff.
documentary and stuff. That was probably the original, and I think he was an original ESPN guy.
Yeah,
that's actually a great one. I think he's probably still involved. He's almost like the professor emeritus of ESPN. Yeah, he's a great one.
I was going to give you some guys I hated, Bri.
Good.
Oh, yeah, let's
give it. Yeah. Well, I'll give you my two. I like
right.
Stuart Scott a lot.
Yes, he was great,
and I like Craig Kilborn. I love Craig. He was great with basketball too. He was great. I loved him. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So guys, I don't like. They're not just from ESPN, but I'll give you 4.
Go ahead.
Jim Rome.
Agree.
Can't stand him.
I can't stand
Awful.
him.
Roy Firestone.
Awful. I'm with you, Alex.
Skip Bayless.
Oh yeah, I don't like him. I can't stand him.
And the last guy who I used to like, but he's become a character of himself, is Stephen A. Yeah, I really liked him at the beginning, and now he's just I think he's gone he says too much stuff that's ridiculous and dumb and wrong. But the first 3 guys I never liked: Jim Rome, Roy Firestone, Skip Bayless. I never understood Roy Firestone, how he got all these interviews, and he was a hot ticket for a while, and then seemed to have gone away. I mean, Jim Rome's still around; he's a big West Coast guy, and Skip Bayless, I think, he's fallen off the planet. I think he recently got fired. So
Skip Bayless is when you watch him, I'm he's either joking or he's an awful human being. He's just awful.
Yeah,
the things he's I'm this has to be shtick because otherwise he's one of the biggest jerks I've ever seen.
He could get, and sometimes he would just say stupid things to get people to listen. Right. He was almost he was doing a, just getting somebody to click. It's like clickbait. It was almost clickbait on, and I hated that
Colin Cowherd does the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Colin. Okay, that's another guy I can't stand, Colin Kelly.
I used to like him too. Like,
Who?
I thought he brought different perspective. Like, hey, this is what I think, and some of the stuff made sense. And then it just got further and further and further from the truth. And you're just like, come on, you're just doing this for, like you said, Brian, clickbait or eyeballs or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, there's been so many announcers, but only a couple. Here's my question: how are you on Greenberg? I'm back and forth on Greenberg.
I don't like him.
I'm not a fan anymore.
Not a
There
fan.
was a time I liked him, and again, I can't stand him now because I just can't stand him anymore.
I never thought he was good on the radio.
And he's a Jet fan, but I get really annoyed with him. I turn him off. I don't.
I didn't think he was good on the radio, and then he gets this studio show, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. And then now they want him to do like the NFL draft, and I'm like, what? Like,
he's got some photos of somebody.
He does.
It is bizarre. Like, I've never understood like his rise through the ranks of ESPN. Like, he's like whiny and like this whiny metrosexual, and it's like now he's writing books, and I'm like, oh god, like did he sell his soul or like what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's really weird because especially when ESPN was letting a lot of people go, and a lot of good people sometimes, because they always went through those periods where they would let a lot of people go, and then they bring them back, and and they did all that, and they still do. Like, they still do all that all the time. And he always ended up remaining. Why is he such a survivor? What is he doing to stay around all that time? So I agree.
I mean, if I had to say, just like watching him, I just think he works his ass off. Like, I think he's the type of guy like, hey, we want you here midnight. Okay. Oh, we want you to do this. Okay. Like, he just doesn't say no to anything, and he just works his butt off. But I just don't think he's that good at it. Like, if you watch the TV show now, I don't even know what it's called for ESPN, like in the morning.
Yeah.
What is it called?
It's like Get Up or something.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It's the same show every day.
Yeah. I know.
It's like, oh, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets every day for a year. And I'm like they talk about 2 segments Aaron Rodgers, then they talk about 5 seconds on another team, then they're back to 2 segments on Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, it was just, I could never get into watching it.
Yeah, and I wasn't a big fan of Sage Steele either, but I just didn't like the way she never seemed like she was prepared, and she would you could tell she was just reading things. And again, it may be just what she got, but I mean, to me she never seemed like a sports fan. And I know she's not there anymore. There was controversy, but I wasn't a fan there.
Well, I'll give you one more from ESPN. You guys are not big tennis watchers, but ESPN covers the U.S. Open. And if you have not watched John McEnroe do a tennis match, he's exceptional too.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's so good.
He's a smart dude too.
He's funny, but like his insights on the game are just like fascinating.
I like Mary Carrillo too. She's good.
Yeah.
How about favorite Olympic commentator
that does the Olympics?
What's that?
Al Michaels.
Yeah, Al. I mean, how could you not have Al Michaels?
One of the best calls ever.
Al Michaels, agreed. But what about like Jim McKay?
Yeah, from Wide World of Sports.
Yeah. He did it for a long. He was the guy before. To me, he's the first guy I remember as the voice of the Olympics was Jim McKay.
Yeah.
Rowdy Gaines is great in swimming.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was him when I was watching the Olympics.
He is so good.
I was like, who is this guy? Like everything. And I was like, who is this guy talking? And they say Rowdy Gaines. I'm like, oh, that's why he knows so much.
If you ever see and they show it, the camera view of him and the other people calling the swimming, he is like jumping up and down and like not saying anything because he knows he's not supposed to, and he's like going crazy. And then he knows he's supposed to go in, and he jumps in, and he's just so good. But if you ever get a chance to watch those kind of behind the scenes things, I think he's really great.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, those are all ones I liked. So I can't really say change on that. Those are the best. I mean, again, because they're memorable. Right, because you only get them once every 4 years, so that sinks in your mind. You remember those people, and they were great. They were great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys all. This is a terrific episode. I think there's a lot. I think this was a lot. This brought back a lot of memories today. I like that. I like going back and thinking about those things. The fun times. Even though hopefully there's some better fun times coming up in current sports, but the Jets do still stink. Okay, so
so do the Giants, dude.
Oh, they were awful.
Okay, so let's have a great night, everybody. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.
See ya.
Good night.